We were first told Ukraine would be a cakewalk victory for Putin's invaders. Then we were told that the Russian army had been destroyed. But the bitter fighting continues in a bloody stalemate. It's time to target who are the real winners in the ongoing war in Ukraine. In the seesaw wave of information and disinformation emanating from the conflict in Ukraine, it has been extremely difficult to accurately assess what is actually happening on the ground, let alone predict the eventual outcome. Early expectations by Western military analysts was that Vladimir Putin's mighty war machine would crush the diminutive Ukrainian forces with ease and capture Kyiv within 72 hours.
The aim seems to have been for lightning strikes to take key cities, but instead they met fiercer resistance than they expected, and that strategy effectively failed.
Yeah, absolutely. What's happened is the 20 or so battalion tactical groups that Russia deployed into the region after failing in Kyiv have been grinded up.
The U.S. State Department had so little faith in the capabilities of the Ukraine military, they initially offered safe passage to President Volodymyr Zelensky. The defiant Zelensky then famously quipped, "I need ammunition, not a lift," and he vowed to remain in Kiev. Soon the tide quickly turned as the Russian invasion force ground to a halt. Once Putin's armored columns were blunted and stalled, the myth of Russian military invincibility was quickly and thoroughly shattered. Through a wealth of aerial drone footage, Western observers watched as Ukraine forces destroyed Russian armored vehicles and killed demoralized Russian combat troops. We were told by intelligence agencies that the Russian invaders had run out of food, trucks, tanks, and missiles. Last month, British intelligence estimated that Putin had lost nearly one-third of his original invasion force of 190,000 troops. That casualty figure includes killed, wounded, captured, and deserted. According to U.S. military doctrine, combat units losing 10% of their strength are no longer considered effective. So, if the intelligence reports were accurate, the Russian invaders were essentially defeated. However, that was over a month ago, and still somehow the foodless, truckless, tankless, and missileless depleted Russian forces continue to mount offensive operations in the eastern Ukraine region of Donbass.
Але ми боремося і за те, щоб бути рівноправними членами Європи.
The now omnipresent Zelensky continues to beg the West for additional sophisticated weaponry, but in his latest address, he admitted that Ukraine's battlefield tenacity is not without an exorbitant human cost. Zelensky stated the Ukraine forces are losing an average of 60 to 100 soldiers killed daily, with another 500 suffering wounds. Both sides are being bled white in what has devolved into a high-tech version of First World War trench warfare. In response to Zelensky's appeal for more lethal aid, U.S. President Joe Biden has authorized a $40 billion Lend-Lease program to get more U.S.-made weaponry and other aid into the hands of the Ukrainians. This enormous sum of money stimulates the U.S. arms industry, and the expenditure will benefit them and indirectly American taxpayers. The Ukrainian recipients are expected to use this gift to fight and die while simultaneously fulfilling the U.S. objective of weakening Putin's war machine. On the flip side of this, the Russian war effort continues to be financed by the very same European countries that publicly denounced the invasion and openly supply Ukraine with arms. To put this in a nutshell, Western Europe is almost wholly dependent on Russian oil and gas imports. The same nations that in turn purchase $900 million worth of Russian oil and gas every day. Prior to the threat of war in Ukraine, oil was trading at just $70 US per barrel. According to the latest reports, that price has skyrocketed to $120 US a barrel, and Russia's oil production rose 5% during the month of May. The real kicker is that Putin demanded that oil and gas purchases would need to be paid in Russian rubles. In a public relations fantasy exercise, European gas companies claim they will refuse to comply with Putin's demand, but instead buy his oil using euros. The reality is they pay euros to Russian exporter Gazprom, wherein Gazprom then promptly converts the currency to rubles prior to finalizing the sale. In this way, both sides claim they are keeping their promise, but the reality is that Putin's regime is raking in their euros and using them to bolster the Russian ruble. I truly pity the Ukraine people upon whom this ongoing tragedy has been thrust. They are fighting and dying on their own soil. Meanwhile, the U.S. arms industry enjoys huge profits, and Western Europe pays hard currency to the Russian invader in order to avoid a potential recession in their own countries. Given that equation, I do not foresee a quick conclusion to this bloody war. This has been On Target. I'm Scott Taylor.